All right, hi friends. The purpose of this video is just to kind of walk you through the central idea and supporting details test. Reminder that this is a summative assignment, meaning it is going in as like a test. So it's worth 13 total points, which you'll see up here. And as we're going through this video, I strongly encourage you to make sure you are pausing at each question, because I'm going to read through the test, read through the articles, and I'll pause for a second. But the nice part about these videos is that you are in control of when it plays and when it stops. So just know you can pause. You should pause while you think through the answers. So here we go. Central idea and supporting details test. Please enter your last name. Please enter your first name. Again, your screen might look a little bit different because you're going to have the next section buttons, so make sure that you're clicking those. Part 1, read the short article and answer the following questions. So here is the article. Reminder, you are listening for central idea and supporting details. A hoax is a story created to trick people into believing something that isn't true. One famous hoax that fooled many was the Cardiff Giant, discovered by William Newell in 1869 while his workers were digging a well. The giant appeared to be a 10-foot tall petrified man. People quickly believed that the giant was all that remained for a long-lost civilization of giants. Even scientists believed it was real. After its discovery, William Newell and his cousin George Hull set up a tent and began charging people to see the giant. It became a popular tourist attraction. The men made a lot of money from people who believed it to be real. The Cardiff Giant even caught the attention of a famous showman, P.T. Barnum, who wanted to add it to the Barnum and Bailey circus. When Newell wouldn't agree, Barnum built his own version. In 1870, both giants were found to be fakes. The Cardiff Giant was actually created by George Hull, who planned the idea after an argument about whether or not giants once lived on Earth. The original Cardiff Giant is currently on display at the Farmers Museum in Cooperstown, New York. After all these years, people are still paying money to see it. However, they are now paying to see the remains of an elaborate hoax, not the remains of a long-lost race of giants. All right, so we're scrolling down to the first question. What would be the best title for the article? So knowing what we just read, which is the best title? A, The Hoax of the Cardiff Giant. B, How to Trick People and Make People a Lot of Money. Or C, Many Famous Hoaxes. Sorry, I said ABC, but basically it's just the first dot, second dot, and third dot. All right, which statement best expresses the central idea of the article? Meaning, think about the topic and think about what it was mostly about. A, people are easily fooled by hoaxes. B, one of the most famous hoaxes in history is the Cardiff Giant hoax. Or C, people love to spend money on hoaxes even after they know the truth. All right, section 3, we've got a new article. We're doing the same thing. Read this article. This is the first page, so you'll need to scroll down for the rest. The truth about fairies. Throughout history, hoaxes have captivated and fooled audiences. One of the most famous hoaxes in history was pulled off in 1017 by two young girls in England. That was when 16-year-old Elsie Wright and her cousin, 9-year-old Frances Griffiths, managed to execute a prank that would fool many, including one of the most famous mystery writers in the world. The Cottingley Fairy hoax was set in motion when the two British schoolgirls got in trouble for getting muddy while playing near a beck in the backyard, or like a river, or a creek. They claimed they only went near the stream to see their fairy friends. Elsie's father was an amateur photographer, and one day the girls borrowed Mr. Wright's camera and they took pictures in a field behind the family's house. The girls wanted to prove that they communicated with fairies in the garden. When Mr. Wright developed the photographs, fairies could indeed be seen interacting with the girls. He considered them fake, and he banned Elsie from borrowing the camera again. However, her mother Polly believed the girls. She was convinced the fairies were real and told others about it. Word of the photos spread, and the story became a sensation in England. Questions as to whether or not the fairies really existed began to circulate. Many people were convinced that Elsie and Frances had indeed communicated with fairies. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, doctor, author, and creator of the character Sherlock Holmes, was one such believer. Conan Doyle was interested in mystical subjects and wanted to prove that humans could communicate with spirits and other beings. When he examined the original photographs and proclaimed them to be authentic, even more people began to believe in fairies. It wasn't until a 1983 magazine interview that the hoax was exposed, when the girls admitted to fabricating them. They said they cut out fairies from children's book and drew wings on them. Then they added the pictures to the setting using hat pins. They didn't use any high-tech effects at all. Elsie said that she and Frances were too embarrassed to admit the truth after fooling Conan Doyle. She said, 2 village kids and a brilliant man like Conan Doyle? Well, we could only keep quiet. Speaking of the first photograph, Frances said, I never thought of it as being a fraud. It was just Elsie and I having a bit of fun. I can't understand to this day how people could have believed they were real fairies. I could see the backs of them in the hat pins when the photo was being taken. Interestingly, during the interview, the girls, then quite elderly, still insisted that one of the 5 photos was genuine. 60 years had passed, and they were still trying to convince the world that fairies existed. All right. So the title of this is The Truth About Fairies, but this first question asks what would be the best new title for the article? A, The Girls Who Pranked the World, B, The Cottingley Fairy Hoax, or C, How to Pull Off a Hoax. Which is the best new title? Next question is, what is the article mostly about? A, 2 girls who managed to trick a famous author, B, 2 girls who fooled people into believing that fairies existed, or C, how foolish people can believe a hoax for over 60 years. Next question. Which statement best summarizes the central idea of paragraph 3? So we scroll up, we count the paragraphs. So paragraph 1, paragraph 2, and 3. So the one we're looking at is word of the photos spread and the story became a sensation in England. Questions as to whether or not the fairies really existed began to circulate. Many people were convinced that Elsie and Frances had indeed communicated with fairies. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, doctor, author, and creator of the character Sherlock Holmes, was one such believer. Conan Doyle was interested in mystical subjects and wanted to prove that humans could communicate with spirits and other beings. When he examined the original photographs and proclaimed them to be authentic, even more people began to believe in fairies. So what was paragraph 3 mostly about? A, many people, including intelligent ones, believed the photos were real. B, even upon close examination, the photographs looked authentic. Or C, Elsie's mother convinced others that the girls really did see fairies. What is the central idea of paragraph 2? So we're looking at the paragraph right above that, where it says, the Cottingley Fairy hoax was set in motion when the 2 British schoolgirls got in trouble for getting muddy while playing near a beck in the backyard. They claim they only went near the stream to see their fairy friends. Elsie's father was an amateur photographer, and one day the girls borrowed Mr. Wright's camera and took pictures in a field behind the family's house. The girls wanted to prove they communicated with fairies in the garden. When Mr. Wright developed the photographs, fairies could indeed be seen interacting with the girls. I'm going to pause there because I think we got enough info. So what is the central idea of paragraph 2? It shows how Mr. and Mrs. Wright believed the photo images were really fairies. B, the paragraph tells how you never know what will show up in photographs. Or C, the paragraph is about how the hoax story got started. Next question. Read the following line from paragraph 2. So this is a direct quote from the paragraph. The girls wanted to prove that they communicated with fairies in the garden. How does this line support the central idea of that paragraph? A, it shows the reason the girls took the photographs. B, it shows the girls intended to fool the world. Or C, it shows how much the girls wanted to be famous for talking to fairies. Last 2 questions are fill in the blank. Long answer, short answer. What is the central idea of paragraph 5? So if we scroll up, we know, paragraph 3, 4, and 5. Speaking of the first photograph, Frances said, I never thought of it as being a fraud. It was just Elsie and I having a bit of fun. I can't understand to this day how people could have believed they were real fairies. I could see the backs of them in the hat pins when the photo was being taken. So based off of that little part, what is one text detail that supports the central idea? So again, you're finding the central idea of that paragraph. Then you need one supporting detail. So one of your sentences should be saying, the central idea of the paragraph is, fill in the blank. And the second sentence should be a quote. So you put your quote and say, supports the central idea because it relates, or however you want to finish that sentence. So again, please try to write in complete sentences. Last question, why do you think the author included the photographs? How do they support the central idea? So it's a 2-part answer. Why are the photographs there? How do they help support our main idea? Hopefully this was helpful to you. Email me if you have any questions.